1. Mirroring and matching. A subtle body language trick that makes strangers instantly trust you. Mirroring and matching is the subconscious tactic of subtly adopting the customer's posture, speech rhythm, or vocabulary. It's often called the chameleon effect. It works because we like people who are like us. When a salesperson subtly paces your breathing or uses your favorite catchphrase, your brain registers them as a member of your in-group, dramatically increasing rapport. To use this, wait 5 seconds, then gently match their tone or shift your weight when they do. The pitfall is being too obvious. If you look like a parrot, you'll look creepy. The defense is to notice your own movements and see if the salesperson is copying them. In summary, rapport is a psychological shortcut to trust. 2. Complimentary close. Flattery won't just get you everywhere, it'll get them to spend money. The complimentary close, or flattery tactic, is the strategic use of praise related to the customer's intelligence, decision-making, or taste. It works because people crave validation and are psychologically inclined to live up to the compliment. When a salesperson says, "I knew you, being a smart investor, would appreciate the long-term value," they're inviting you to buy to prove the compliment true. The context is effective when the compliment is believable and tied directly to the purchase decision. Ethically, the praise must be genuine or it can backfire instantly. In summary, people buy not just the product, but the identity the salesperson validates. 3. Similarity principle. If you want to influence someone, find the one thing you both hate. The similarity principle, or finding common ground, involves highlighting shared interests, backgrounds, or even problems. It works because perceived similarity is one of Cialdini's foundational pillars of influence. When a salesperson mentions they also grew up in your hometown or that they also have a passion for a niche hobby, the shared bond lowers psychological defenses. The pitfall is fabricating similarities, which destroys trust if discovered. To defend against it, recognize that the similarity is a tool, not a basis for a financial transaction. In summary, shared experience is the fastest way to turn a transaction into a relationship. 4. The name drop. Forget who you know, it's about who the person you're selling to knows. The name drop, or the association principle, is using shared acquaintances or prestigious customer names to establish instant credibility. It works because it leverages social proof before the numbers even come out. If a respected figure or company uses the product, it must be valuable. This is hyper-effective in B2B sales. The edge case is when the name dropped isn't truly respected by the customer, which makes the salesperson look desperate. The defense is to ask, how is their experience directly relevant to my unique situation? In summary, credibility is a currency you can borrow from others. 5. Reciprocity principle. Your brain is wired to feel guilty if you don't return a favor. The reciprocity principle, or give to get, is the psychological compulsion to repay a debt even if the debt was unsolicited. It works because the sense of obligation is a deep-seated social norm. A salesperson who spends an hour offering valuable, custom advice or provides a detailed analysis is creating a debt. To use it, always lead with value that costs you little but seems valuable to the customer. The defense is to mentally separate the gift from the sale and refuse to let the feeling of obligation dictate a bad financial choice. In summary, the first one to give gains control of the debt ledger. 6. The free sample. That tiny cup of yogurt you got at the supermarket costs you more than you think. The free sample, or the gift, is the most common use of the reciprocity principle. It's an unsolicited, no-risk taste of the product. It works by establishing ownership and triggering the aforementioned norm of reciprocity. Once you consume the sample, you feel psychologically indebted. To use it, ensure the sample is high quality and directly showcases the value proposition. Ethically, the sample must be truly free. In summary, the best gift is the one that forces a return. 7. Foot in the door. The fastest way to get a big commitment is by first asking for a tiny one. Foot in the door, or gradual commitment, is the tactic of getting a customer to agree to a small, low-risk request, like signing a petition or answering a short survey, before escalating to the main purchase. It works because of the consistency principle. Once you agree to a small request, you want to be consistent with that initial action, making the larger request feel natural. The defense is to recognize that any initial yes is a gateway to a larger one, and to evaluate each request individually. In summary, a commitment is a slippery slope. The first step is the hardest to stop. 8. The trial close. They're not trying to close the deal yet, they're just trying to close your mind. The trial close, or assumptive close, involves using non-final questions to assume the sale is happening, like, should we ship that to your home or office? Or, will you be paying cash or financing? It works by bypassing the customer's natural no barrier and mentally forcing them into the logistics of ownership. To use this, you must project absolute confidence that the purchase is a given. The defense is always to re-anchor to the price or core terms before answering any logistics question. In summary, the most powerful sales questions eliminate the possibility of a no. 9. Lowballing. The true price of the product is often hidden until you've already said yes. Lowballing, form of hidden cost, involves offering an attractive initial price, securing a commitment, and then revealing mandatory, costly additions, fees, essential upgrades that make the final price much higher. It works because the customer has already mentally committed to the initial deal. Consistency principle. To defend, always ask, what is the total, final, out-the-door price with everything needed to make this work? In summary, the low price is the bait, the hidden fee is the hook. 10. High-end offer first. Want to sell a $500 product? Lead with the $5,000 one first. High-end offer first, often utilizing the contrast principle, involves presenting an extremely expensive option before the actual target item. This is the opposite of the foot in the door. It works because the target item, when presented second, now appears drastically more reasonable and affordable by contrast, making it feel like a deal. The defense is to mentally anchor to your own target budget, not their first price. In summary, contrast is a magician's trick, making ordinary things look extraordinary. 11. Price anchoring. The most important number in any sale is the first one you see. Price anchoring, or setting the initial high anchor, is presenting the highest number first, which serves as the reference point for all subsequent negotiation or comparisons. It works due to the anchoring bias, where the brain over-relies on the first piece of information received. To use this, always state a justifiable high price before the customer can state their budget. The defense is to immediately re-anchor with your own research-based valuation. In summary, the anchor doesn't set the value, it sets the conversation's center of gravity. 12. The decoy effect. The worst product on the shelf is often the most important for the store's profit. The decoy effect, or asymmetric dominance, involves introducing a third, intentionally inferior option to make a specific target option look much better by comparison. For example, a medium size is priced just slightly below the large, making the large seem like a fantastic value. It works because it changes the customer's mental task from valuing an item to merely comparing it to a clearly worse choice. The defense is to ignore the decoy and compare the two choices you actually want. In summary, the decoy's only job is to die so the main option can live. 13. Authority principle. We are biologically programmed to obey the person wearing the uniform. The authority principle, or expert influence, leverages perceived expertise or status to boost credibility. It works because people trust credible sources to save cognitive energy. Salespeople use this by citing degrees, wearing professional attire, or using industry jargon, credibility stacking. To use it, clearly state your experience or certifications. The pitfall is overstating authority, which can intimidate or sound arrogant. The defense is to ask for the data or evidence backing the claim, not just the title. In summary, influence flows downhill from the title to the wallet. 14. Social proof. You are far more likely to buy something if you know other people like you are buying it. Social proof, or the bandwagon effect, is the idea that people will conform to the actions of others under the assumption that those actions reflect the correct behavior. It works because uncertainty is reduced by seeing the crowd's choice. Sales uses this by saying, "This is our most popular package," or "Everyone in your neighborhood chose this model." The ethical pitfall is faking the crowd. The defense is to base your decision on your needs, not the popularity contest. In summary, the size of the crowd is not an indicator of quality, only of choice. 15. Testimonial power. The review from a stranger matters more than the promise from the salesperson. Testimonial power, or peer validation, is using reviews and quotes from satisfied customers. It works because it leverages social proof from a neutral third party, bypassing the inherent distrust of the seller. To use this, testimonials must be specific, relatable, and address the common pain points of new customers. The defense is to look for detailed, verifiable reviews that go beyond simple 5-star ratings. In summary, trust is outsourced to those who have already risked their money. 16. The consensus trap. The majority may not be right, but they are persuasive. The consensus trap, or herd mentality, is the technique of constantly emphasizing that a majority of customers agree with the sales proposition. It's an intense version of social proof. It works because the pressure to belong and avoid being an outlier is immense. To use this, highlight clear percentages, such as 9 out of 10 customers upgrade to the premium package. The defense is to remember that you are the only one who has to live with the purchase, not the majority. In summary, don't follow the herd just to avoid being the outlier. 17. Scarcity principle. We don't want things we can't have, we want things we are about to lose. The scarcity principle, or limited stock, increases the perceived value of an item because of its perceived limited availability. It works because psychological reactance makes people desire what they are restricted from having. To use this, emphasize the limited quantity, such as only 5 units left at this price. The ethical pitfall is inventing false scarcity, which, if discovered, destroys all trust. The defense is to determine if the product's value justifies the price, even if the stock was infinite. In summary, scarcity does not increase value, it only increases urgency. 18. Deadline tactic. Your worst decisions are always made under this kind of pressure. The deadline tactic, or time-bound offer, creates artificial urgency by limiting the availability of the price, not the product. It works because it forces a decision now, removing the customer's biggest source of power, the time to think. To use this, create a clear, final expiration date and be prepared to stick to it. The defense is to calmly state that you will only buy on your schedule and ask if the deal is available next week. In summary, the clock is a weapon used against indecision. 19. Last one in stock. The pain of missing out on a deal is often greater than the joy of the product itself. Last one in stock is a focused application of scarcity that specifically targets loss aversion related to inventory. It works because the customer is focused not on buying, but on avoiding the loss of the opportunity. Sales uses this by saying, "I can't guarantee it will be here tomorrow." The defense is to ask, "If you had 5 more in stock, would I buy it at this price?" to remove the urgency component. In summary, fear of loss is a stronger motivator than hope of gain. 20. Exploding offer. If you have to decide now, the deal is probably bad. The exploding offer, or now or never tactic, is a deadline and a scarcity pitch combined, an offer that will be withdrawn entirely if not accepted immediately. It works by paralyzing the customer with the fear of immediate loss. The pitfall is that it is often an unethical tactic that permanently damages trust. The defense is to recognize that any genuinely good deal will remain good for 24 hours. In summary, good deals get better with time. Bad deals explode. 21. Framing effect. It's not the price, it's the packaging of the price. The framing effect involves presenting the exact same information differently to influence the decision. Selling an expensive service by saying it costs only $3 a day, positive framing, is far more effective than saying it costs $1,095 a year, negative framing. It works because the brain processes the smaller number in the positive frame only more favorably. The defense is always to unitize the cost. What is the true annual, monthly, and hourly cost? In summary, the reality is the number, the frame is the perception. 22. The paradox of choice. Too many options won't make the customer happy, they'll make them leave. The paradox of choice, or decision paralysis, is the phenomenon where being presented with too many options causes anxiety, leading to a higher likelihood of the customer choosing nothing. Sales uses this in reverse. A good salesperson will quickly narrow the options to 2 or 3 for the final decision. To use this, qualify the customer's needs early and remove irrelevant choices. The defense is to demand a breakdown of the differences and ask the salesperson to name the single best option for your needs. In summary, fewer options lead to faster decisions and higher satisfaction.